Welcome everyone again. We're in our OCCDLA, Oregon Community College Distance Learning Association College Share discussion series, and we focused this year on artificial intelligence. Just real quick, the planning group around the OCCDLA Professional Development group is Greg Kaminsky from PCC. So hi, Greg. Beth Hale, who I'm not sure if I've seen her yet, but she's from Chemeketa. Sarah Miller is here from Tillamook Bay, and Jess Winus, who I think will be joining us but isn't here currently. So thanks for that team for helping us kind of organize these discussions and bring them to you. We began discussing AI early in the fall. I think in November was our first discussion. And then we've continued to have discussions almost monthly since then. And I've got a link here for you that I'll throw in the chat. And that will take you to the resources and recordings from those discussions we've had in the past. And then also a quick note, in May is our next discussion, and that will be on content creation and enhancements and kind of more of a focus and lens around OERs. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And the registration I just created, so we'll share that out more widely. But for you guys are the first ones, early bird gets the worm. So you can register for that link inside that document that I shared there. So today, we're here to have a discussion more around AI in the future of the workforce. And what AI literacy skills do we recognize now that we need as professionals that are in the workforce currently, but also how do we prepare our students for the future workforce and what AI literacy skills do they need? And we may not have a very clear picture on what exactly this looks like for a few years as workforce and industry adapt and implement and change along with AI. But I think it's a discussion that's really important that we begin to have now. And how do these changes, how do we foresee them impacting our course learning outcomes and how we teach our students and what they need to learn to be prepared going further, whether they're transfers or going straight into the workforce. We'll keep the same format as previous sessions where we heard a request to kind of keep a little bit more time inside the discipline-specific breakout groups. So we'll start with a sharing from Wilson and Lorena on for about 10 or 20 minutes to get us started, and then we'll go into breakout groups from there. So I'm very thankful for Dr. Lorena Nascimento, geospatial faculty from PCC, and Wilson Nitunga, business faculty from PCC as well. They'll start us off today with sharing a little bit from their work and their experiences. And I'd like to ask Dr. Nascimento to get us started with this conversation. So thank you, and you're welcome to share your screen or anything you'd like to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for having me. I'll share my presentation, share my screen, but I also want to share my presentation on the chat. Can access through this link. And okay, so let me share my screen. Right. Let's hide this thing. So I ended up getting to AI in the academic year of 2022, 2023. PCC had a Center for Artificial Intelligence and Cultural Computing. So me, Wilson, and other colleagues spent the year meeting bi-weekly and also getting exposed to, these are the books that we work with, especially those first two books, You Look Like a Thing and I Love You and Data Conscience, where we could understand more how AI works, how models are trained, concerns about data ethics, and also to get a better data literacy, which is essential to working with artificial intelligence. We had a symposium, 3-day symposium. Dr. Brandes Marshall was the keynote speaker. During that symposium, we had sessions focusing AI in education, industry, and everyday life. There were sessions, workshops where people could explore tools such as text-to-image models and also how to create smart prompts for ChatGPT. We also facilitated one session with people that were working in Intel and startups, explaining how they were working AI in industry. data ethics is something that is essential, like understanding what are the concerns about ethics. I'm not going to get much into this today, but you can access this presentation and observe more and explore more in this topic. But what I like to focus and share is what I've been doing in my classroom, especially related to geospatial technology. Is interesting. I like this image here because when you talk about artificial intelligence, there is a very broad scope. So artificial intelligence is kind of like the more generic term, and then that means like when the machine can imitate human behavior. So we can see like writing essays or creating art. But inside artificial intelligence, that is also good to be familiar with those terms as part of data literacy. So there is machine learning. So it's the application of artificial intelligence that allows the systems to automatically learn and improve from experience. And people work with machine learning, most of them, they need a background in programming. So they'll be training those models and be like, have the ability to work with large data, big data, and then talking to the computer using programming language to be able to communicate with the computer. And then based on the data that is being fed to these models, uh, train those models that will be turned into deep learning models. And deep learning models, so it means like they're using complex algorithms. So machine learning scientists will decide what will be the best type of algorithm either to aggregate data, to classify data based on the data format. And when you're talking about deep learning, so that means like models such as ChatGPT, like the DALI, some of the models that we share in the presentation, extract images from aerial images. So these people that don't have a background in programming, not like data science, they can use those technologies such as we been using AI in our daily life. So in the geospatial curriculum, one of the first things that we implement was a AI workshop. I facilitated this workshop with our artificial intelligence cohort, also with students from PSU and PCC that were part of the GIS club. And sometimes I facilitate in classes as well, work already with nonprofits such as Chick Tech. And the goal of this workshop was to use a site suitability, which is one technique that we use in geospatial science to decide what is the best site based on characteristics of the size. And in this case, can be properties related to soil. In this example, we're looking to areas in the Grenada Island that were more susceptible to landslides. And the interesting of AI is that one deep learning model that is able to extract buildings. So we could do our GIS analysis to see, like, based on soil, based on proximity to rivers and other elements, which parts of the island were more susceptible to landslide. But the AI implementation was to identify where those buildings are. So we can extract buildings, identify buildings that were in areas of risk of landslides. And that is it. So before this model, a machine learning science already classified, this is what a building look like, and test part of the data set. And then you can apply that for a larger sample and then be able to replicate that model that was already tested. Other application of AI algorithms. This was even before attending the AI cohort. So during COVID-19, there was a change in public spaces, and this study shared how some cities in Europe use the YOLO algorithm, which is one algorithm that can identify objectives in videos to see how people were moving around plazas and parks to observe like change in the use of public spaces. So it's possible to observe, like, using historical data and see how people tend to move around in a plaza in the morning, the afternoon, maybe it's a special event such a protest or a music event, and then be able to plan the design of the event based on how people has been historically moving around. The other application of deep learning models, this one to extract trees and also to extract roads. I use this in this class, Geo 170, Maps and Geospatial Concepts. This is a 100 level class. It's also a class for dual credit. So we have students from Jefferson High School attending this class as well, also being exposed to this technology. And here we use aerial imagery or satellite imagery, so remote sensing data. and then also explore like the properties. What is the input of the data? Is that what is the size of the pixel? What is the spatial resolution? What is the spectral resolution? Is that a real color photo, like an aerial image? Is that like a one sensor that has like thermal information or that can identify height of buildings? So also like seeing how the properties of those deep learning models and the type of data that we need to include in those models. And lastly, this is one example of cover letter activity using ChatGPT. So there is one class in the program that we prepare students for the workforce. So like they do a map portfolio. They also prepare materials to apply for jobs such as resume and cover letters. And cover letters is a time-consuming activity. Before ChatGPT, I already have one workshop about cover letter. That was the first time I taught that class. I created this workshop. And then the following year, we had ChatGPT. So one of the things that we discussed during our cohort is it's hard to ignore like AI technology. So I decided to bring that topic into class and then show that if I write a prompt to write me a cover letter, ChatGPT, that will be the same. You come up with the same structure as I had in the workshop, not using AI. And the following week was interesting because after we brainstormed about the use of ChatGPT, one student came with a better prompt. It was write me a GIS analyst cover letter, which will be the positions that they will be applying. So it was also interesting like to see how different prompts can generate different results. And I was like talking to them, like you can use that to brainstorm ideas. Don't like just copy and paste the result. You need to do some adaptations, but that can save time. And I think that is one of the main goals of AI to help workforce to learn how to save time. And there is also like some trends in generative AI in GIS and mapping. So feel free to explore this story map and also to reach out to get to know more about this topic. And I'll pass to Wilson. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Like Lorena mentioned, like I think the start of like the AI cohort that we have at PCC has for me has impacted my life tremendously just because it gave me the opportunity to pursue education. So I did a data science program through the MIT professional development education. And that allowed me to not only study like in terms of like data science and the AI from just the front end, but understanding the back end. So I would emphasize the idea of just like learning like what machine learning is and things of that nature. I come from the workforce background of like helping people get jobs. And so that's very, very important for me because I feel like my own family members are like the people that are going to struggle to when it comes to the future of the workforce, right? So I think of it like, okay, if my mother works at this job, what would it look like for her to continue working that job in the future? It's changing. And so today I'm going to just really just kind of focus on what I think we could start thinking about or doing as relates to just helping the population that we helped, the underserved communities kind of get so I'm going to kind of share my screen a little bit here, and I know we don't have a lot of time. So this was kind of interesting as I was doing some research around the workforce as it relates to just workers in the United States. 44% of all US workers are low wage earners. And that was kind of like really, really interesting. And just to say women and people of color are overrepresented in this population, and the majority of individuals have less than a college degree. So I do think that when it comes to just speaking specifically for this demographic, community colleges, the individuals that are here in this room today, you have a huge opportunity to see ways you can make a difference in somebody else's life because of your action. So here is ways we can use AI now in terms of like as we think through, depending on your field and what you do. From a business perspective, we use AI to, we're starting to use generative AI applications for businesses just because students are learning how to create a business plan, business model canvas. The social media marketing class that I teach, we implement a lot of that, and even introduction to entrepreneurship where they learn how to create value propositions. So we're trying to implement these generative AI applications within the curriculum. That's what we're doing on our side. But for you, if you have a different field that you're focused on, how could you start thinking about using the AI to help the people that you serve to get on a better path? So career pathways. I do think that we can leverage artificial intelligence to personalize career pathways. This is something that we don't necessarily talk about. We always talk about like, okay, how do I teach? How do we start using AI to teach people how to use AI? It's like, okay, but the most pressing issue sometimes is that individuals that we're serving are looking for ways to advance their career, and that means a change of career path. So how do we use the means of artificial intelligence to help us help these people personalize career pathways, right? This is something that we don't necessarily think about or talk about a lot of times, but it can be huge and tremendously huge in leveraging these tools to try to help one personalize their career pathways in terms of where they want to go. For example, if they do data entry at a hospital, what does that look like moving forward? Because we know a data entry job is going to be eliminated through AI, because any job that requires a human to interact with a machine and to do the same function over and over is going to be eliminated, because machines are not going to make a mistake. A human gets tired. So with these jobs, we have to think of like, okay, so what's a job that's going to more likely be here in the future that we could start training you on, or kind of giving you that career path that you can go ahead and follow that path. So that's where I think artificial intelligence could be used. AI can analyze one's data to predict potential challenges or areas where they may need additional support. So with students, I think that even from a faculty lens, we need to start thinking of like, okay, how are we using this AI to potentially predict potential challenges or areas where our own students might need additional support. So depending on what you do and what area you're in your own field, I think you can start thinking about that. Assess one's strengths and weaknesses. I think this is very easy grab in terms of like, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Depending on the individuals that you're working with, I do think that we can start using AI right away without having to go too far into the weeds. Here are some things that I'm thinking, like when we think about AI literacy skills and critical and how critical they are to preparing students for the current or the future workforce. I do think that these are the top 3 things that I think we should just focus on. So familiarity with key AI terms, like Lorena mentioned, right? So what is machine learning? Like, it's kind of interesting because I get to just take all these classes, and the term machine learning can just be easy said to me just because I understand what it is in a back end. But come to think of it, I mentioned this like last year in class, and some students never heard of the term before. So it's like, okay, maybe as we talk about AI literacy, we need to start thinking of like, what are the terms that are being used today? Because those are the terms that are going to be used in the jobs. Those are the terms that are going to be passed on around without hesitation. So we need to prepare our students to start being familiar with these terms. What is machine learning? When we say neural networks, what does that even mean? When we say natural language processing, what does that entail? Because we use these tools, right? So we need to figure out a way to not only be the users of it, but be also the people that are going to kind of work with these applications, because that's the future of the workforce. Natural language processing, students use it all the time. Like, you use Grammarly all the time. You use all these different tools. So how do we start these conversations and teach students of like, when you use Grammarly, this is how it works. When you use these tools, this is how it functions, how it works. Depending on where you are at in terms of your job, you can start pulling these terms and put it into your everyday lessons. Computer vision, what does that look like? So I have AI overview slides that just talk about all kinds of different areas of AI and what that means. According to Lorena mentioned this, like data literacy, right? What is data? What is information, right? I think these things are very, very important for people to understand, just because it adds to that AI literacy skill sets. And finally, practical experience and application. I do think this is very, very important, especially for us as well. How are we going to help our students or the people that we serve to prepare for the future of the workforce when we ourselves are not really prepared? So how many applications do you use for AI? So I do think that colleges, universities, we do need funding to be able to give you access to these tools, because it's never going to be free. The most like, yes, you can have access to Gemini, Google, Gemini, you have ChatGPT for free. But if you really want to know how it works, you really want to know how it functions, you have to get the version that you can pay for. Like, for example, ChatGPT 4, you pay $20 a month. I do think that we need more of the funding side, where certain instructors and certain people have access to those things so they can learn, because ChatGPT 4 now has about 1 million plugins that you can use for different things. So if students start using it because they are interested in it, that's going to show in your classroom, where some students are going to be way behind because they never get to hear about it. Students that are already going to advance are already going to advance no matter what. So it's a responsibility as educators to be able to be at the front line of these applications, to be able to understand, so that way we can be able to talk about it in our classrooms. Yep. Kevin, Meta just released theirs and I signed up for it. And it's kind of interesting. So we do need to stay on the edge of these things. So here in this small presentation I have, and I can share this, you have IBM Watson, right? This is a really cool tool that's free. You can sign up for it and you can learn how to make a chatbot, right? We all know when it comes to like entry-level positions in terms of customer services, we all know that these companies are going to start thinking of like, okay, how do we train you to where you can come in after the chatbot has solidified whether this person needs a physical person or a live person or not. This is already happening. This is not in the future. I mean, you go to any website, like any company, like Alaska Airlines or something like that, you're going to chat with a chatbot first before you get to a real live agent. And so that's already existing. So for you as an instructor who's teaching students or other individuals that we serve that are going to more likely be in these entry-level positions, how are we preparing them to understand what's taking place in the workforce? Because it's already taking place. So if you never use Watson, IBM, and be able to just kind of explore and understand how it works, then I feel like you should, because you're going to be able to understand that if a student is looking for entry-level marketing positions, that might require them to be able to be at the social analyst or things in that nature. They have to know how chatbots work. They have to know what a cadence means. They have to know all these things. And so this is where we have an opportunity to start using these platforms like Microsoft Bot Framework, Amazon Lex, Google Dialogflow. All these applications are free of use for us to be able to start thinking of like, when we think of like AI digital literacy skills, I think of these applications. So I think I can keep going, but I want to stop here. On this last slide here, where it talks about generative AI versus conversational AI, because a lot of times we talk about AI, but like the slide Lorena was sharing, AI is this implication of imitating a human behavior. That's very broad, right? But now we have to go into like, what is generative AI, which is what we're mostly talking about a lot of times as we talk about ChatGPT, as we talk about all these different platforms. But we're not talking about conversational AI. What does that even mean? What is the difference, right? So we have to be able to talk about both, because when you talk about generative AI, you're really talking about using generative AI to help you with certain things. But when we want to help our students with digital literacy, as relates to AI, we have to teach them what conversational AI is, because this alone is what's driving the industry at the moment in terms of like chatbots, in terms of like all of these things, because chatbots are not really able to think for themselves and operate like generative AI. They are able to just kind of give answer based on all these different things that they've given. Like, hey, if somebody asks about our clothing, we have size medium, large, and this. We have these colors. So if someone goes into a chatbot and say, hey, I need to buy this t-shirt, and it's going to ask you what color do you want, is only going to give you the colors that it's going to kind of like extrapolate data from the data we've given, all this information, and so to be able to kind of create that conversation. So understanding these two is going to be very important as it relates to basic AI literacy skills to help our students. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm happy to share. Yeah, these are other different platforms that I have. I'm happy to share these slides just so we can keep in touch with time. I just want to stop right here. So I hope that this is helpful.
Wilson, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll get your link to your slides and make sure we add that into our resource document from our previous discussions. I really appreciate Lorena and Wilson, you opening up this discussion. My kind of takeaway right now and hearing both of you and also the other discussions I've had with industry leaders or community small businesses is it seems as though data, I think we all know this, data is absolute king right now. It's the new gold rush is data. So understanding what data is, how to collect it, how to interact with it, and then how to process it with the use of AI seems to be a critical skill going forward, much beyond just data scientist, I think. Maybe we all become data scientists in a way. But also, I think what's critical is how Wilson, you kind of called it out, is if we don't understand how to interact and use this technology, how can we help our students translate those skills? So I think, and it's all about interacting. What I've heard about GPT or AI, it's a general performance technology, which is what they used to the OG of GPT. In the internet, the telephone, and electricity is considered a general performance technology as well. So there's not like a real clear cut how to use AI. There's not like a step-by-step directions I can give faculty or students of how to use it. So it feels as though AI forces us to really recognize human qualities in communications and how we interact with AI in that kind of capacity. And then not everyone has those types of soft skills. And so I think going forward, what I'm realizing is it's really the soft skills that are critically important of the skills that make us human. And then how we translate that into our technology use and interactions with AI. I also wonder too, and I'll stop here in a second, sorry, I ramble, the ethical considerations around AI too, and how do we understand those ourselves? So when we interact with AI, what are the environmental costs around that interaction? And then how do we inform our students too of all these ethical considerations so that they make informed decisions when they go forward in their workforce and college careers too. So those are things I'm thinking of as you guys are talking. So I really appreciate that. And I want to open up too, if there's anyone that have questions for Wilson and Lorena before we dive into the breakout groups, want to kind of hold space here for that if anyone has questions or comments. And so, all right, I think we'll move so we have kind of a smaller group this time around. Greg has created breakout groups based on discipline. I wonder if we want to maybe do more of a mixed group because of the smaller numbers. I don't know if we'll have enough to really kind of populate by discipline in the breakout groups. We could just do a couple of them and just randomly assign folks to a group and do maybe like 5 per group. Or we could just stay here in the main room and just have a discussion amongst everyone here. So kind of seeing what folks want to do. I know sometimes it's a little easier to start conversations in a smaller group. Greg, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just curious if anyone in the group has a particular preference for going into a discipline-specific room, because that has been the preference in the past, and that's still possible. But we would need to do some mixing and matching because there are, well, for example, I don't know how many English faculty are here today or whoever, and I know a few people have to leave. I know that Wilson and Lorena cannot stay for the whole session either. So any preference within the group about breaking off into a break-off session, or should we just continue our discussion right here on the guided questions?
I might be an odd duck, but without a specific discipline, would love being in the bigger and a smaller group. I'd love being in the larger room.
I think let's just do that. Let's just go ahead and stay in the larger group here and have kind of a bigger discussion. I'm going to throw the link into. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Eric. I didn't see your hand there.
Oh yeah, if you want to throw a link in there, but I think I have a question that I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts, but specifically Lorena and Wilson, while you're still here. And thank you for your presentations and the work you've done, the symposium. It's been exciting. And I was checking in with like my own excitement about these tools and these changes, because we're hearing a lot of them just from the culture, from thought leaders. But one question I have is there's this feeling that like, okay, there's a door that's opening and some students and some people now who are going to make use of these tools and learn how are going to benefit and, maybe have this moving up and excelling in their fields. But I also feel like at some point that door will close again, and this will just be the new normal, if that makes sense, that every technology, whether it's electricity or the phone or the internet, there are inequalities that get baked in because our society and our world has inequalities. So it's a huge topic, but I was curious how you've seen those inequalities be addressed by tools or approaches to these tools, or how you've thought about that as kind of a general theme.
I can share briefly. So that is one of the things that we discussed in our cohort. So kind of like we don't, as you mentioned, like we don't experience like fairness in our real world, and then we're going to might have been exposed to that in the metaverse, working with AI tools as well. So the data ethics part that is important, especially like transparency, how is the data collect, the diversity of the data. Like in geospatial technologies, for example, there are like models to extract roads, but those models that can be adapted to different locations in the world because the street design is different. So if I'm using one model that can identify what is a road in one aerial image, that might be a different format. Like the highway can have a different aspect in the United States comparing to China. So taking that sensibility when training models, that can be something that help to address the technical part, and also having like teams that now maybe also like people that are working with like DEI professionals that will be also working with computer scientists, people that are working with like multidisciplinary teams, so everybody can bring their expertise and have more diversity in data. But that's definitely one issue. There is like many racist algorithms, like hypertextualization of like when using text to image, when they're generating a woman, lack of gender diversity and of race diversity in those in that data. So that is definitely one issue that needs to be addressed, and just being aware of that is a way to start that conversation.
I think for me, the way I'm looking at it, it's just changing the way we educate people, because we've always educated people from the lens of like someone who's knowledgeable teaching someone who is not. And I think in the age of AI, that's going to change because they have access to the same information you have. So which translates to the development of these tools. So I do think that we have to imply this model of co-creation of knowledge starting from the classroom ourselves. Because what happens is when these machines and these softwares are being developed, a lot of times when they take in consideration of like bringing in other people, it's based on a like market research perspective. Okay, let me go ahead and interview people that live in this neighborhood and hear their concerns, as opposed to like, let me go ahead and include them in so that way they can co-create this thing together. I feel like that happens, that's been happening for generations after generations, and that keeps going. So I think for us, we have to change it, even in our teaching pedagogy. Like, we teach from a perspective of, I'm a teacher, you listen to me. And I think we have to feel that pressure of like, oh man, this student knows more than I do. Why do you feel bad about that? Like, you know, they have access to the same information. So like, at the end of the day, we have to be operating from like, okay, can I co-facilitate this knowledge together with my students? If we teach from that angle and that translates to the next generation, adapting that angle of information of like we co-creating knowledge together and co-facilitating everything together, then that's going to enter into the fields of workforce when they go in and they become managers, because they're going to learn how to invite others to co-create that knowledge together, as opposed to what we have now, where people are just being used for information purposes. And that's what we're seeing, because people are never, the individuals that are underserved communities are never invited to the table to co-create the knowledge with the people that are creating the softwares. They're always used as a subject of research. And that's why we need to change. But we don't have a lot of power to tell these companies like, do this. So we have to change within ourselves and start doing it in your own classroom. How are you teaching your students? How are you presenting the idea of artificial intelligence? Are you presenting the idea of AI from a, I know what I'm teaching you, and so therefore you have to listen to me? Or you kind of inviting them like, hey, let's explore this thing together. What are you finding out? I think that in itself is like huge for me, from my perspective.
Wilson, I really appreciate that. I love how you said co-creation of knowledge. Some of the things I've been thinking of is I feel as though since the advent of the internet, there hasn't been a barrier for information, but there's still a barrier for knowledge, and that was through higher education. But I wonder now if there's still a barrier of knowledge, and do we eventually identify that the role of the faculty member, as you're kind of talking to, is adjusted in more of a facilitation role of learning together and having humility alongside your students and learning this along with them, versus a hierarchical type of top-down that I think traditionally we've kind of had in the classroom. So I really appreciate that. I think that's a shift a lot of faculty maybe need to consider, and how they approach this, and recognizing that I may not know everything about AI. I may not know exactly how to steer you. I'm still navigating it myself, but having some comfort there and leaning with their students and having them help in understanding and kind of co-creating alongside of them. I really like that. I think that's a really great approach to consider. Other thoughts or comments or anything to ask Wilson or Lorena from their presentations, or things that you've just been chewing on lately? I mean, there's a reason why you came to the session today, and trying to hear what are the pieces you're trying to connect, and questions that you have.
I would also be quite interested in just hearing from people if you have any specific ideas about the first question that's on the Google Doc, which is what AI literacy skills your students will need to be prepared for the future workforce. If you think about your own discipline, I know we have a lot of instructional designers here today, but we also have, let's see, EOSOL. You know what? If you could just, I'm not sure the discipline of everyone here. If you could just type in the chat what you teach, that could be helpful for us as well, just to help introduce yourself and the folks here. Larissa has a hand up.
Hello, my name is Larissa Shatalova, and I am from Ukraine. My English is absolutely perfect, so please be prepared. And I want to talk about math, how I see these AI tools. We have main idea. Education, it's about critical thinking. You can see this slogan all over, especially on our campus. I don't know about others. But question is, if instructor supposed to follow the book, only one textbook, that particular one, not step to the right, not step to the left, only one textbook. Next year, or a couple of years later, another textbook, but you have to follow the textbook, number one. So instructor is limited and students are limited. Not so much about critical thinking. Next, books usually follow certain logic, and they would use only one approach, not as many as it's possible. And sometimes they're not the best. Number three, now, because I'm teaching in LCC almost 20-something years, I can say that books have a lot of mistakes, clear mistakes. And sometimes department will say, oh, don't worry about that. They will learn later. This is what happened last year with me. When I was trying to say that math and weight, it's a different, absolutely different ideas. But I was told, no, don't worry. They will learn this later. Number three. This is why I see that if we teach students that no one is perfect in this world. So books can have mistakes. Book show only one option, but not as many as it's possible. So we have to teach students, and AI provide this option. So here is this option, this. Pick which one would be the best for you. And this is what they will use later when they will be in their field. So what would be this drug is better, or this set of exercise, or this particular method, how to calculate, how to make this tool or that one. This is huge change, but we can't go faster than it's possible, because our main idea, follow the book, is big concern for me, at least for me, number one. And number two, unfortunately, we want, this is our psychology, to be in comfortable zone. And each administrator is trying to make his or her own spot with comfortable zone. And if you are proposing something new, I had this experience last term, not last term, last summer. If you propose something new, no, you will be punished, not supported. You will be punished. No, that's it. This is why it has so many problems. And I hope that if we work together, maybe somehow slowly we will go forward. Because here is situation when we unfortunately don't have enough power to change everything immediately, number one. And number two, my idea is it would be great if, for instance, our college would provide one practical lesson, how that can be done in math or physics or chemistry. Another college will provide another lesson, how can be done in another subject. We will learn more, because our good talks, but they can be more helpful in this area. This is my idea. They're right or wrong, I don't know, but this is how I see that. Thank you.
Thanks, Larissa. Appreciate your passion. I think, one of the last points you kind of touched on was a call for professional development. And a lot of the research that I am reading, that's needs to be the number one priority for many institutions. If your professional staff and faculty don't understand how to use the technology, it's really difficult for them to understand how to obviously translate that to students. So I appreciate everything you had to say. Any other questions or comments for Wilson around what Greg had asked around AI literacy skills for the workforce going forward, things that you've noticed or seen already. And it looks like Karen just threw her hand up. So go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Wilson and Lorena, thanks so much for sharing that information. I'm coming out of English and we're having very specific conversations around student writing, so it's great to hear what's going on in business or GIS. I had a question connected specifically to a point you raised, Lorena, about, say, asking students to use some of these large language models to generate a resume, which is a great idea. And then you said you tell them adapt it, use it to brainstorm. And I think that sort of nuance seems to be getting lost when I'm introducing students to the large language models, because I'm saying these are great for brainstorming, these are great for all these things. And then there's just like copying and pasting an essay. So I don't know if you have any advice on how to make sure those nuance tips about how we use it can land with students when we introduce this tech.
Yeah, I can just so they use that for cover letters. For resume, I just to kind of like use some template. But for cover letters, and that is something like that is just one, we kind of like just using one of the classes in this whole course. As part of this class, I invite sometimes like hiring managers or people that work with like the main work is like do professional advice to students. And one of the things they mention is like when hiring managers are looking into they're gonna take like 2 minutes to look into your cover letter, into your resume, and they're gonna spend like 1 hour to do that. So some companies they're also gonna use AI tools to filter some keywords on resume. So also kind of provide some feedback, also provide like awareness about like they are using AI, you can use AI as well. So and that is like especially like working ChatGPT, like that platform that can have like some words that like if the person read, okay, that is I think it's especially if you don't use maybe a paid version, it can be easy to say, okay, that was not generated by a person, that is artificial intelligence. So I think it kind of like the same way as you mentioned, it's kind of like to brainstorm. So I don't know how to, I'm stressed, I'm looking for a job, I'm changing careers, and I have to spend an hour, 2 hours to write a cover letter. And then you can write a prompt and then based on that prompt, adapt and then include like which skills do you have, but also along the ChatGPT, I explain like what is the structure of a cover letter, and that is based on the workshop that I had before. So the way that I approach is kind of like using more AI to save you time, because I think the society that we have today, we expect to be like super productive. It's kind of like we talk to people really like from generations like our ahead of us, and they're like they had like more time maybe to just stop and just like observe the universe. Like we kind of like very expected, provide like so much information nowadays that we need to like manage time. So that is kind of like the goal, to use that platform to help you manage time, to save you time, and also to brainstorm ideas. But that does not gonna replace then. It just like the approach that I use with the class.
Josh, you raise your hand.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for your presentations and discussion so far. I'm a faculty in the biotechnology program at PCC, and I really like the 3 breakout questions you've posed for us. I don't have super solid answers, but I'm glad we raised these questions. I'm certainly intrigued about how we can help students make ethical decisions around their use of AI. And I'm glad you called out AI in school, work, and life because it's holistic. It impacts so much of what we do. So I'm thinking more about that. I don't have any biotech specific answers on question 3. On question 2, do I foresee a change in learning outcomes in my courses? Absolutely. I'm trying to think about that from the short, medium, and long-term perspective in higher education and career technical CTE programs especially. There's some things I do just kind of organically within the existing course outcomes with technology changes. So I can just do something different each year based on the new technology, and then other course outcomes do need to be rewritten. And that process is slow in higher ed. So how to keep pace when things change so fast is a challenge. And then to question one, I think a couple of you saw my note in the chat there. What literacy skills, AI literacy skills, will students need to be prepared? Again, I'm curious about, short term, like 1 to 2 years versus any longer time frame. Things are moving so fast in AI, and I don't know what this means for the workforce, but I'm anticipating all this automation is going to mean structural changes for our economy and our whole capitalist society. I don't know. So I have the least informed answer for question one beyond like within the next year, small things I'm doing. Anyways, there's so much uncertainty. I'm just along for the ride, but I struggle to predict or look at others' predictions of what the workforce could look like even 5 years from now.
Josh, I'm glad you spoke up because I saw your chat in there, and I think your question is really kind of the elephant in the room, the heart of kind of like what this discussion is. That first question, when we drafted that, I kind of thought of that as like a trick question because I don't know if we really know the answers yet to what the workforce is going to look like. I don't know if local business and industry even know that themselves yet to help us understand how we could train students to for that, whatever that workforce might be. I also think that in a year from now, the AI systems that we currently have in front of us will look very different in just 6 months to a year from now too. There's been notifications that came out this morning that looks like GPT-5 will be released shortly. I think sooner than what they anticipated. And then the advancements in GPT-5 are supposedly just leaps and bounds above what GPT-4 can do. So what AI is, I think, is still a moving target. So I appreciate you being honest and candid with that question because I think it's one that everyone has. And I also want to acknowledge that I think, that frustration or that anxiety around not being certain of that picture is normal. We're all kind of in that same boat, and I think it's okay. I think we need to recognize that sometimes we have a question of I'm not even sure what to teach anymore because I don't know how this is going to impact the future for my students and where they're going to be. So these are all very valid questions, and I think very, very, very valid concerns. And I just appreciate you calling that out because I think that those are conversations we need to start normalizing and having them with our colleagues on a regular basis because it'll take a village to figure this one out. I promise that much. Josh, go ahead. Your hand came back up.
Yeah, just one more brief comment I want to add. It is my hope that in the near to medium term, especially at the community college level, PCC has reorganized around pathways, and I'm a career technical education program, and everyone else in my pathway is transfer coursework in the life sciences. I'm hoping that we can develop something on behalf of our students that really brings together those two halves, those two sides of our college, because I think a blending of some technical proficiency and that liberal arts education, like I don't know that I can prepare you for the technology of your career 5 years from now. But I know if you learn the technology as it exists right now or grapple with it a bit, and you grow your soft skills and human skills, you will be a member of this society as it transforms. So that's, I don't get enough interaction with my LDC colleagues, I would say. I'm focused on getting my students ready for the workforce. And meanwhile, I'm curious to have those connection points. I think PCC is working on first year experience within pathways and other projects like that. But I think maybe AI literacy, it's something that impacts all of us. And maybe we bring together, again, that ethically use AI in school, work, and life. Like that goes across disciplines if we think at that level. So I hope I get to interact with you all more as we maybe not just program specific, but college-wide have some stance.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we are getting near the hour. This has been a really great conversation. I'm glad we kind of stuck as a main group and had a little bit more deeper conversation there. Wilson and Lorena, I want to say again, thank you so much for kicking this off and sharing about your work and your perspectives in that. And if there's anything else anyone wants to say in closing, we have a few minutes, but otherwise, I really appreciate you all being here. And please check out for that Google Doc we have with all the different resources from the previous talks. May 21st at noon, I think that was the date, will be the one on content creation and OERs. And